sense and an energy policy based on the sharing of scarcity. We will simply apply to government the common sense that we all use in our daily lives.
Now, here's your host, Dan Celia.
Good morning. Welcome back to American Family Radio Network Financial Issues. I'm Dan Celia. It's great to be here. We've got a lot to talk about today from an economic standpoint. There's a lot going on in the economy, some very interesting things, and some more numbers coming out today that really have no correlation to the durable goods numbers that came out last week. And the interesting part about it is the GDP number that came out today, the second look. Remember, the first one gets revised. Then they come out with a second one. And then the final number will come out in a few weeks, and that will be the final number. So the first number got revised. The second number will get revised. And the third number will supposedly be the real number until sometime next year when they revise that as well. But anyway, that's how it works. So the second number, the second look, which is the revision of the first look, came out. But here's the interesting part. The GDP number coming out by the Department of Commerce, right? So does the durable good numbers. There's really no correlation there. It's a little messed up. But anyway, let me just say, and yesterday, by the way, all the indices finished in positive territory. Looks like we're scheduled for a positive open this morning. But maybe not, now that I think about it. It is. But I wonder what the day will look like, because the positive day yesterday, in my opinion, was the fact that all the data was pointing to the fact that the Fed is not going to stop quantitative easing. That's good news, right? I mean, it isn't good news. It's bad news. They need to stop it. But it's good news. So what happens is gold goes up, right, on that news, because the dollar is weakening on that news. But today, GDP numbers come out stronger than expected, which would give the Fed reason from a number standpoint to cut tapering. Now, if next Friday, a week from tomorrow, we get good private sector job numbers, then it's almost going to look like a definite that the Fed could stop in September, stop the easing. Now, I know yesterday I just said that I don't think it's going to happen because all of the economic data is trending on the negative side, and it is. Not all of it. We got this number I'll talk about in a minute. But I guess I'm going to have to change where I am on that. I don't know. I wrote an article for my newsletter this week. I'm going to have to change that as well. I'm thinking about it. I don't know whether I'm going to change it or not. I could probably talk myself out of changing it by the time we get finished this program. Anyway. So I'll tell you, just so you know, just so you don't think that, I go unscathed. I'm not one of those folks that just does conservative talk radio and stays within my comfort zone. You ought to know that about me by now. And, I get asked on a regular basis to come on, some sort of liberal or even centrist, non-Christian network that, can use me as a whipping post, or at least they think they can. And so this morning I go on a station outside of Boston and getting interviewed for what was going to be a 10-minute interview. Ended up being almost a half an hour, where they attempted to just beat up on me. The difference was I had facts, they had none. So it started out with a really off-the-wall question. Really off-the-wall question, something that I was totally blindsided by, on gun rights. And they started out with, there's a new bill in Massachusetts that is trying to get passed, in reference to gun rights. And, I suppose that you're on the side, this was them saying, I suppose that you're on the side of, gun ownership and, the rights to carry and bear arms and all those good things, right? I said, well, yeah. If you're asking if I'm on the right side of the Constitution of the United States, then the question to that is yes. They asked me, which has never been asked to me before, do you own guns? I said, yes. How many? I said, many. They asked me if I have a permit to carry. I said, yes. They said, do you carry? I said, no, not usually. Why? Mainly because it's uncomfortable. But I went on, which I shouldn't have said, but I went on to say, hey, I was at a gun show in Greensboro, North Carolina last weekend, and I came across a manufacturer. I'll give them a plug because it's a great product. It's called N8. Their web address is n82tactical.com. Check them out. I mean, if you carry, anyway, I'm just saying, check them out. They have a holster that they've developed, and anyway, I picked one of these holsters up, and it's the only, for the first time I'm comfortable carrying. It's like I don't even know I have. It's a great product. It's awesome. You need to check it out. They don't even know who I am, so they obviously don't know that I'm plugging them right now. But it is a great product. It's small n82tactical.com, and you need to check it out. So anyway, I even said that to them. Well, I found this whole thing. So they tried to hammer me, and I just kept coming back to the Constitution. And one of the hosts said to me, well, do you really believe that the Constitution is as appropriate today as it was then? I said, well, it seems to be appropriate for liberals to cite it when it backs up one of their positions. So based on that alone, it obviously must still be appropriate for today. Anyway, they moved on to the next subject. The next subject being, what are you going to do if the GDP number comes out today and is really good, and there are many that believe it's going to be? I said, what do you mean by really good? They said something well over 2%. And I said, well, what am I going to think? I'm going to think that I was right back in April and May when I said the August GDP number is going to finally be close to 2.5% or better. Now, if you remember me saying that, call up and remind our listeners that I said it so they don't think I'm crazy. The reason I said it was because, and you'll remember this, that the government decided they couldn't get GDP up, so they changed the way they calculate GDP. You got to remember the rant that I was on back in April and May over that, when they announced that as of July 1st, they're going to change the way they calculate GDP growth. And by the way, we now calculate GDP growth and include things that zero other countries in the developed world calculate GDP. I said then, nobody else is saying it. I was really disappointed when the number was reported. Guys that I really respect are definitely on the right side of things that didn't point out the fact that, of course, GDP comes in at 2.5% this morning because of the way that we've changed starting July 1st and what we include in that GDP number. It's more deception and smoke and mirrors, and nobody's talking about it. Now, if you remember, by the way, 866-300-9298, if you remember my going crazy over the fact that we were changing the way that we're calculating GDP back in April, saying that this is typical of the government that we have in place right now. They can't get what they want. If they need to create an illusion, then they just change the way things are done and being calculated. You remember when the IRS scandal broke, I said, when are they going to get to the scandal in the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics? It's a whole nother story. So I'm not gonna belabor everything that I talked about this morning on that program, but it's just interesting that they try to come at you. Three people trying to come at me, and none of them had any facts. And I kept saying to them, "Well, by what basis do you say that? What numbers are you looking at?" And they immediately change the topic and move on to the next question. Drives me crazy. But what really drives me crazy is the fact that the conservative media, with the exception of right here, American Family Radio, Talk Network, right here, is the only place, at least until lunchtime or so, before it finally sinks into everybody, that we've got a 2.5% GDP growth rate, which is wonderful. I'm glad there is an uptick in GDP growth. That is good. That is a good number, 2.5%. That's wonderful, if it holds. But everybody seems to forget why it got there or how it got there. It's not gotten there because we created jobs. And the reason I said earlier that there's no correlation between the GDP number today and what the Department of Commerce put out last week with durable good orders. There's a number of things that don't add up. Things like the fact that we have flat and a going down a median income. This number doesn't indicate that. The durable good orders had a sharp decrease. If you remember, it was 1.3%, which I said is the worst number in all of the durable goods number in business investment. Yet the GDP number that we just got this morning says that has gone up. It doesn't, the consumer spending hasn't gone up at all, but that they're saying that business investment in structures and such has gone up. Well, wait a minute. Last week you said it was down 1.3%. Which is it? There's no correlation. I got a problem with that. It says the economy grew at 2.5%. It's a lie. It didn't grow at 2.5%. I don't know how else to say it. Because now we calculate in a whole bunch of incidentals, things in the economy like people paying their cell phone bill or buying a new cell phone, people buying movies on Netflix or renting movies on Netflix, things that have nothing to do with the growth of the economy or creating jobs. Now we're counting all of those things as growth in the economy. It's not growth in the economy. It's people doing what they've been doing in hard times and in good times. People got to pay certain bills. People will continue to do certain kinds of spending that are not related directly to growth in the economy. It would be the reason why the United States, for the past 75 years, has never counted those things, and why no other country in the universe counts those things. Because they're not accurate measures of growth in the economy. I'm so sick and tired of the smoke and mirrors, the deception that we continue to see. But it's even worse that I'm hoping, call me and tell me tomorrow, if you hear it somewhere on mainstream media, anybody that is bringing up the fact that we changed the way that we calculate GDP, and it would be one of the reasons it's up 2.5%. But this could be an excuse for the Fed to start their taper in September. So is it good news for the markets or bad news for the markets today? We'll have to wait and see. I'll be right back.